There was a time in Kenya when one sound was everywhere, in matatus, clubs, and even in your neighbor's phone's speaker. It wasn't just music, it was a takeover, and the group behind it was Ethic Entertainment, who are considered the pioneers of Gengetone. They rose quickly and became one of the biggest names in the country's music scene. But with the fame came controversies, pressure, and changes behind the scenes. And as fast as they rose, they started falling apart. So how did a group that took over Kenya end up losing the spotlight? Remember to subscribe if you enjoy this content. In May 2018, Ethic released a song called Lamba Lolo. At first, it did not look like the kind of song that will change Kenyan music. The video was simple, made on a small budget. Reportedly, it was shot using a phone, with no expensive production or major industry backing. Even the music video stood out. The boys are seen sucking lollipops while girls dancing around them, creating an image that immediately caught people's attention. It was different, it was raw, and it felt like something made by the streets for the streets. At a time when many young Kenyans were heavily consuming Afrobeats and bongo music, Lamba Lolo arrived with a fresh local sound that felt impossible to ignore. It did not try to look polished or perfect. Instead, it embraced its simplicity, and that ended up becoming its biggest strength. What looked like just another low-budget music video quickly turned into a cultural moment. The song spread rapidly, introducing a new generation of listeners to a sound that will soon be known across the country. And just like that, everything began to change. But before Lamba Lolo and before the fame, there was just a group of young boys trying to make music. Ethic Entertainment was made up of 4 members: Rekless, Swat, Seska, and Zilla. At the time, Rekless was a struggling underground artist who, together with Zilla, ran a small movie shop in Umoja. Swat, on the other hand, was still in high school. And according to Zilla, the group simply came together and started making music. There was no major label, no big budget, and no guarantee that any of it would work. Just a group of friends with a passion for creating something different.
Kuna vile ilikuwa challenge kidogo. Hapo ndo nilipata idea mingi za usanii. So hapo ndo nilianza kuimba. Alafu after hapo venye nilimaliza ndo nikashikananga na Rekless. Juu tulikuwa nasomanga na Rekless prima moja. So tukaanzishanga movie shop. Hapo ndo tukaona acha tuanzishe kitu. So tulikuwa tunaroganga tu hapo hivyo. Ndo siku moja pia Seska akakam hivyo. Alafu Swat, alafu tukaform group.
What made the group stand out was that each member brought a unique style. Rekless had a gift for creating catchy choruses that stayed in people's head for long after the song ended. Swat, meanwhile, brought a raw and unfiltered style of writing. His lyrics reflected the language, energy, and everyday experiences of the streets, giving the group an authenticity that many young Kenyans connected with. Together, those different styles blended us into a sound that would soon change Kenyan music. At first, they did not have any big expectations for the song they were creating.
Lamba Lolo. Controversial sana mazee.
Tulikuwa tuna expect. Yaani hiyo kitu tulikuwa tumepatia kani views 5,000 tu.
Yone ilikuwa
ama 10.
Yone ilikuwa target yetu, yani ile kuomoka. Kata 5,000 yenyewe tumefika sasa. Unaona? Mungu akafanya mambo yake.
The video for Lamba Lolo was simple, and it was also shot using a phone. And to them, it was just another release, a fun project to put out and see how people would react. But what happened next was something nobody could have predicted. The song spread rapidly, and over the years, it will go on to attract more than 7 million views, turning a small, low-budget project into one of the most recognizable songs of its era. Of course, not everyone embraced it. Some critics and fans felt that the song was promoting irresponsible sexual behavior among teenagers because of its lyrics and visuals. But the controversy did not slow its momentum. If anything, it only made more people curious about the group behind it. More importantly, Lamba Lolo arrived at a time when many young Kenyans were heavily consuming Afrobeats and bongo music. While the local industry was struggling to command the same level of attention, for many fans, the song marked the return of a fresh Kenyan street sound and helped open the door for Gengetone movement that would soon sweep across the country. And for the young artist behind it, life was never the same again. If Lamba Lolo introduced Kenya to a new sound, then their next release proved it was here to stay. In August 2018, Ethic teamed up with Console to release the song Position. The song quickly became another massive hit, proving that the success of Lamba Lolo was no accident. But the impact of Position went beyond just charts and views. The song helped push a new generation of street music into the mainstream. Its energy, slang, and an apologetic style connected with young people across the country and gave momentum to what would soon be known as the Gengetone movement. And around the same time, other groups such as Boondocks Gang and Silas Gang were beginning to make a name for themselves. Together, they formed a new wave that was changing the sound of Kenyan music. And by the end of 2018, Ethic's rise had become impossible to ignore. After a year filled with back-to-back hits and growing popularity, the group was signed to AI Records, a subsidiary of Universal Music. It was a remarkable milestone for four young artists who had started with a simple low-budget music video. At the time, many saw Ethic Entertainment as one of the most promising groups in Kenya. They weren't just making hit songs anymore. They were leading a movement that looked set to define the future of Kenyan music. After their breakthrough and the rise of Gengetone, Ethic Entertainment were no longer just a rising group. They had become one of the biggest names in Kenyan music. What followed was a strong run of hit releases that kept their momentum alive and cemented their position at the top of the new wave. Songs like Saba, which was recorded at Pachu Entertainment, Stagger, and Instagram, kept them constantly in the spotlight, each release adding their dominance in the Gengetone scene. Their success even crossed borders, leading to a collaboration with Jamaican dancehall artist Conscience, showing just how far the Gengetone sound had traveled in a short time. And here back home, their rise had also caught the attention of influential figures. At one point, it was reported that Raila Odinga's son expressed interest in supporting and sponsoring their music videos, a sign of how mainstream and impactful their movement had become. For a moment, Ethic was not just part of the wave, they were the wave itself. But as success reached its peak, so did the pressure, expectation, and the attention surrounding them. And slowly, beneath their success, things were beginning to shift. Everything wasn't smooth for Ethic from the start. One of the first major issues was a fallout with their first manager. The manager even took them to court, accusing them of breaking their contract multiple times. He claimed he was the one covering most of their early costs, from music videos, transport, recording sessions, and even TV interviews, but the group allegedly refused to pay him back. He later said that Ethic's greed and what he called a toxic ghetto mentality would be their downfall. He also added that Ethic were not originally meant to be a group, and according to him, they only came together for one song, Lamba Lolo. But after seeing their potential, he encouraged them to continue as a group for about a year, and during that time, they released more songs like Position featuring Console, with him still footing most of the bills. Another issue came from inside the group. One of the members reportedly had a problem with being under a label or management. He said he did not understand why they had to split their earnings, and things started getting messy. At some point, he even began booking his own shows with friends and charging 2,000 shillings to 4,000 shillings per performance. Many fans and speculation pointed towards SWAT as the member involved. And in 2019, Ethic found themselves in another trouble. They made a surprising statement where they said they did not identify as Gengetone artists. This was controversial because Gengetone was the exact sound that made them famous in the first place. And later that year, SWAT found himself in another trending incident. A video circulated online showing him being caught up in what was described as mob justice in Eastlands, where he was accused of breaking into someone's apartment. However, Ethic later released a statement saying SWAT had actually run into the apartment while trying to escape police officers who were on patrol and were arresting people that night. And just a few days later, Ethic were dropped from the Hype Festival, and fans speculated it was connected to that incident. And just when they thought controversies were over, another one came during the Koroga Festival. Ethic shared their side of the story online, claiming they were attacked by security guards from a company called K9, along with their hype man and driver. But later, Koroga event organizers released footage suggesting the opposite, that Ethic members were the ones involved in the confrontation. This caused even more debate online, with many people questioning both sides. And in August 2019, their song Figure was taken down from YouTube and other platforms due to copyright issues. The beats were claimed to have been stolen from another song called Konyo. And still in November 2019, another hit, Tarimbo, was banned. The song did not sit well with part of the public, with critics saying it promoted inappropriate themes in its lyrics. The then KFC boss Ezekiel Mutua stepped in, contacted Google, and the song was pulled down from YouTube. Later, Ethic issued an apology, but that wasn't the last time they issued an apology, because in 2020, they issued another apology after releasing the song Soko, which also faced backlash and was eventually banned. And after years of success, controversies, and constant pressure, Ethic was no longer the same group that had once dominated the charts. The attention they used to receive started fading, and while they continued releasing music, it became harder to recreate the massive success of songs like Lamba Lolo and Position. Then came one of the biggest turning points in the group's history. Rekless decided to leave Ethic. For many fans, it was a shocking moment. The group that people had known for years was suddenly forced to continue as a trio. Even though the remaining members kept making music, many fans felt that something was missing. As time went on, questions about a possible reunion kept coming up. However, in some interviews, the remaining members suggested that bringing Rekless back into the group was not part of their plans. Meanwhile, Rekless focused on building his solo career. He released songs such as Dakika Tano and So Fine, showing fans what he could do outside the group. He later went on to release an EP as he continued developing his own sound. But music has a funny way of bringing people back together. In 2025, Ethic surprised fans by reuniting as all 4 members once again. The reunion came through the song Ukitaka, which was warmly received by fans and went on to gain millions of views. For many supporters, it felt like a return to the chemistry that had made Ethics special in the first place. And just when it seemed like the story had come full circle again, one final question remained. What is Ethics' legacy, and where are they now? Still together and continues to make music. While the group may not dominate the charts the way they did during the peak of the Gengetone era, they remain one of the most recognizable groups to come out of that movement. Over the years, the music industry has changed. New artists have emerged, and trends have come and gone. But despite all those changes, Ethic has managed to stay relevant and continue creating music for their fans. Looking back, it's impossible to talk about the rise of Gengetone without mentioning Ethic. Through songs like Lamba Lolo, Position, Figure, Stagger, and many others, they helped define a sound that took over Kenya and influenced a whole generation of artists. Their journey was far from perfect. There were controversies, disagreements, criticism, and moments when many people thought the group would never recover. Yet somehow, they always found a way to keep moving forward. And maybe that is what makes their story so interesting. Not just the success, but the ability to survive the setbacks. Whether you're a fan of their music or not, Ethic's place in Kenyan music history is already secured. Their impact on Gengetone and modern Kenyan entertainment can still be felt today. Because in the end, trends fade, headlines disappear, and controversies are eventually forgotten. But influence lasts, and Ethic's influence is a legacy that will be remembered for years to come. From 4 young artists chasing a dream to become one of the biggest groups in Kenya, the story of Ethic is one of success, controversy, resilience, and survival. And as their journey continues, one thing is certain: their mark on Kenyan music can never be erased. Thanks for watching.